Charles, my revolution is to be a bridge to nature, to divine energy, and most importantly, yourself.
Welcome to the What's a Revolution show, a show for men and the people who love them, where we discuss how men can find and embrace the revolution within themselves, where people can find and embrace the revolution within themselves. I am your host, Dr. Charles Corprew. What's good, revolutionaries? I won't even go through my usual diatribe with you because this is a special episode. And when I say special, right, I get a chance to interview one of my great friends, not like my good friend, one of my great friends, and one of the super fans of the What's Your Revolution show. My dude, my guy, my New Orleanians brother, the man, like the mayor of New Orleans, Mark Berger. Mark Berger will tell you his story, but he is an entrepreneur. He is the guru of mental health and wellness in New Orleans. When you talk about physical fitness and mental health, peace, everybody knows the name Mark Berger. So Bergerlicious, as I call him, What's up, my friend? How you doing?
What's happening, Charles? How are you?
I am good. I am good. I'm seeing. Look, for the Visionary Inclined, I'm just gonna jump in. But look, how are you? Before I ask you that first question, and revolutionaries, listen to this answer. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm busy. I get to connect with people like you. Life can't be better.
Um, Mark is one of the happiest, peaceful people that I've ever met in my life. Like literally, life is just like calm and easy. Like does yoga. He's a vegan. What is your Instagram handle?
My personal one is Mark Berger Nola, but I have one for the food that I cook called Meatless Burger.
That's right. That's right. Meatless Burger. That is right. So look, go follow him, Mark Burger Nola, Meatless Burger, because there's always some like great recipes. You make me feel bad. Like I think I'm healthy. People see me and like, Charles, you're fit, and then I'm standing next to Mark and we're playing our favorite game. And revolutionaries, you know what that is? It's pickleball. And this dude is like fit. I'm trying to be like him. I need to like digress like 10 years. But other than that, revolutionaries, like he is like the epitome of health and wellness. Um, and so you're doing well. It is great to see you. It's great to be able to spend some time with you. And we're going to talk about a variety of things today. The etiology of this conversation actually stemmed from us being together in New Orleans back in late 2023, as I was there visiting friends, and we got a chance to just sit down and do what we do, talk about life, talk about what's going on. But you got this shirt on that I want to dive into really, really quick. It's interesting, and I know you always do things very strategically. So why do you have this shirt on that says "Be a Bridge"?
So I do life coaching, and so I try to ask my clients and then also my yoga students as well, what is your dharma? It's basically, what is your revolution?
Mm.
And a long time ago, I had this coach, and she asked me kind of like what my purpose was and all that kind of stuff. And I gave her like four answers. I wasn't really clear at the time, and I don't think you really have to be clear like right now and know. But somebody recently asked me kind of the same question. Just a friend, doesn't really do too much like spiritual work or self like growth work, and it just came to me. And I'm a bridge
Mm.
for people with each other, with nature, with finding spirit or God or divine energy, whatever you want to call it, and most importantly, especially themselves.
Yeah.
So it's being a connector, and it's connecting your heart, your mind, your soul, and also empowering people to be a bridge as well. So she said, like, what is your thing? I was like, I bridge people all these things. She goes, that's your thing, be a bridge. And I was like, cool. Shout out to Tuna Tapas. That's her name, Tuna. You met Tuna playing
I met
pickleball.
Tuna. That's right. I met Tuna. Tell Tuna I said hello. She made her brother feel good. She made her brother feel good, even though she cursed me out when we were playing pickleballs. Actually,
He's
she cursed
Turkish,
you
man.
out. She was like, "Take your damn friend, take your damn pickleball playing friends out of here." You know what I'm saying? But definitely had a really really good time. That is interesting when you think about that, Burger. Like what it looks like to be a bridge. And that, we could ask that question. I'm going to ask you a little bit later on in the show, but like, what's your revolution? But to be a bridge, to bring people together. And I want you to talk about what that looks like for you in your life, like to be a bridge, like put it in practice for me. Because if I'm thinking about myself, if I'm thinking about how do I be a bridge in the work that I do, maybe I don't know. Maybe folks don't know. What does that look like in practice to be a bridge, to be a connector, to be a network, to bring people together, to coalesce together?
So I think we all have to find our own way in, because we
Mm,
all are born with different skill levels. We all have different passions and what we're trying to do. And so, for instance, like, I've been a community organizer in so many things, whether it's philanthropy or it's fitness, um, or it's spiritual work. And, you know, I put on running groups.
mhm.
I am involved with uh, City of Love, which is predominantly black church. Um,
That's right. That's right. Pastor Love.
yeah, Bishop Lester Love. It's my boy.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
That's right. That's right. The
but in
bishop.
Hollygrove, in Hollygrove, and it's building community. I put on a yoga thing in this church for his congregation and other yogis around. Having yoga in a black church, is very progressive.
Yeah.
And Lester gets a lot of kickback, but that's the same thing. I mean, his church is called City of Love.
City of
Your
Love.
heart,
Yeah.
your heart is where love comes from, and there's these energy systems called the chakras in you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the first three are kind of like your basic needs, and then you have, like, from here up, or kind of like that higher spiritual sense,
Mhm.
and then you have the heart, which is a bridge, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, this is where it all stems. It's right in the middle of everything. And then we learn how to lead with our heart. That's when we can really start to form community around different things. I think it's just finding out what you're passionate about and then putting a plan to it. Getting with a friend, like, hey, today we're gonna go play pickleball, and maybe we'll meet some people out there. Maybe we'll invite some other friends next time when we learn how to play, or whatever that is. And like I said, between running and yoga and flying across the world to put on retreats and stuff, it's like, how can I do the things that I love, the things that I'm passionate about, and I know what my purpose is. So, like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do that as best as I can, and I'm gonna fail a million times doing it, because I have
Yeah.
being an entrepreneur. You have to know how to fail. You have to learn to get back up, and then you just figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, it is so interesting because we talk about so much, and you're a super fan of the show. Is that I open most of the shows with this conversation around what community looks like, and you're a wonderful bridge of bringing community. And I think about when I come to New Orleans, like I want to spend time with you, like I want to. And pickleball is our thing right now, but yoga was our thing. I think we met, with me going to the Church of Yoga and taking some of your classes, and just being able to bridge. I guess that's the word. Being able to bridge and really bring together our friendship. I want to give a shout out to one of the most beautiful humans on this planet,
I
right?
knew this was coming.
Yeah, right. And because she gets mad at me. She gets mad at me when I come into New Orleans, and I actually do not. Right, I actually do not call or say anything, and I call her afterwards, and I say, Kimberly Doley, right? I was in New Orleans, and she gives me shit. But I want to give a shout out to literally one of the most beautiful humans on this planet. She is an amazing, wonderful soul, a wonderful joy, a wonderful love, and a wonderful bridge like yourself out to the world. I want to give a shout out to her son, his name, and you're gonna tell me, Cole.
Cole,
That's
yes.
right. That's right. Cole. I want to give a shout out to baby Cole, who has a wonderful, wonderful mother, and I love you dearly, Kimberly. I love you dearly. Um, just a short story, Mark. She and I argue. I think that she looks exactly like my mother when she was like younger. I'm like, oh my God, it's almost scary to see how Kim looks at this stage of her life and how my mother looked, particularly. And I'm like, wow, this is a little scary. Maybe I need to run. But that that is a different story. Um, I talk about this a lot on the show, Mark, just about building community. And as I said, you are a wonderful beacon of building community. If someone wanted to start, if somebody said, I've dropped myself down somewhere in Austin or Chicago or Virginia Beach or DC, and I want to be a bridge, how do I do that? How do I start bridging people? How do I start connecting folks?
Well, when we were young, we didn't have the option of the internet. So, just a Google search, I think, is like really the first thing, or checking on. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's like the world that we live in. But I mean, when when I go to a city, back in the day, like when I was a big runner, I like type in running groups, right?
Right.
Um, then it's like, well, I like to do yoga, so I'll see what kind of yoga studios are in a place. And then, it's just like I said, I have a passion for helping kids, especially when it comes to mental and physical wellness. So when I look at like how am I going to do philanthropy, that's where I usually put my efforts towards.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's not just like a one step process. It's just like figuring out all these little things, and building community around them. And we were talking earlier. It's like, as we're getting older, it's like I feel like we have closer, smaller, more intimate friend
Yeah.
groups. And
Yeah.
then I get into pickleball, and I've got 30 new good friends, which I never thought that I would have. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm not saying that we're all super close and we're together all the time,
It's
but
it,
like
it's a
to
community.
bring that many people in my life in my early 40s, I'm hosting a pickleball party with like the regulars, and there was 50 people invited to my house along with their significant
Wow.
others. So we're gonna have that in a week and a half. But I would have never thought that I would have been competitive in sports again like this. I would have never thought that I would have been this passionate for sports. Like I run, I
Yeah.
work out, I love to do those things and move, but to like be around community that much anymore, like I gave up my running groups. I was like, hey, I need time for myself. I need is the older and older I get, the more introverted I am.
Yeah,
I'm
me
still
too.
an
Me too.
extrovert, but um, there's I just want time to myself, and this is like made me want to be around people a little bit more, in terms of building a new community. And like I said, it's the fastest growing sport in the world, and I think that's because it's so inclusive. And I think that was one of the draws for me. Besides like having a lot of fun doing it. And then you really didn't have to be a paddle sports
Yeah.
person or
Yeah.
racket sports person to jump in this. And so I'm seeing people in their 70s and 80s. We're playing with kids. Like I had to ask some guy's mom that plays with us who's 17 years old because we're having a party. He's at the playground all the time playing with us. But his mom comes too. I was like, Mary, I was like, I'm not going to ask your son to this, but if you want to come and bring your son, like it's a
Yeah.
community from like
Yeah.
the oldest guys in the 70s to the youngest guy who's 17 that's playing with us.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an interesting thing, and revolutionaries, I want you to think, right? It is finding your people. And you never know who your people are going to be. I remember when I first started playing pickleball, um, I have an uncanny knack to tell stories about people, right? Oftentimes they're untrue, Mark, right? Pickleball seemingly old and white. Um, and I was like, how am I gonna fit in? I'm young and black and male. This is a story that I'm telling myself. And I remember going and saying, I'm gonna push past my discomfort. And that's one of the things that we do. That's part of the revolution. We push past our discomfort, Mark. And I remember going, I remember going the first time, after not playing for like years, and I had only played like twice before then. And there was this older white Italian gentleman. And I got in, he was like, "Oh my god, somebody new," because people love playing pickleball. And I was like, "Oh," and I told him, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna play with you." right? Like, I'm gonna play with you. It's like somebody. He's like, "Do you even know how to play?" I was like, "No, but we're gonna play together." And by the end of the day that we were playing together, he was like, "Oh, Charles, tell me about you. What do you do?" He's like, and I started telling, right, right, because there's always down here. If I'm a black man, and either I'm a teacher or I'm in the military, or they're shocked with like, "Oh, you have a PhD, you work in finance, you do this, like what? Oh, you like, oh." So now he wanted to talk money and all the different things, and so moving forward, that was my first community of pickleball, and then I moved and I found another group of folks where at another rec center, and it is a wonderful group of people like you are talking about where we play all the time together. We play at different spots together, but the community, I can go find hugs and love and camaraderie. And like for me at this point in time, Mark, and I know Revolutionaries are like, where is this conversation going? I have found my competitiveness again. Maybe, I've been called a little intense on the pickleball court, but I think when you can find play, that's the theme, right? If the bridge for you is to find community and to find play, then both of us who are both big in fitness, mental health, and wellness, play is an elixir. Play allows you to be in community. Play allows you to find core groups of folks that might have differing thoughts, and you don't have to talk about, but you can come together and play. And I think, Mark, as I end this diatribe, if more of us played together, we may not see the silos that we're seeing within our country. Yes, I made it political, or I made it, we are tribalized. But if we figure out how to play together, because nobody's talking about red or blue or green or liberty, people are talking about like, one look, 1-1, look, 1-1-1, 1-1-2, right? And they're slapping paddles at the end of the game and they're playing, and then you play with the next person. Nobody cares about what you believe in on the court. People just want to have a good time. And at the end of the day, I'm hugging folks, right? Who I'm hugging people who may have very different views, but it never happens, and we get to play together. And that's what I love. And I think that's being a bridge. Pickleball, in this sense, or whatever you're playing that brings folks together, can bridge people unlike anything that we've ever done. So I'll get off my diatribe.
And, I mean, when we're out there, it looks like the United Nations. I mean,
Yeah.
where we play, I mean, look, it's a majority white, but I mean, there's a huge Vietnamese population.
Mhm.
You have some Muslim kids. I mean, it is like, it is. There's a lot. A couple of black kids out there. I mean, and there are charities that are pushing pickleball
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
also, black youth because it's so accessible.
It's so accessible. And look, what I saw in my pickleball group chat is that some folks are moving pickleball uh, into uh, into people who are incarcerated as a means of building community and play. And so I'm really happy and happy to think about how this game that I never thought I was going to play now has become such a significant part of my life. It is a bridge, and it allows me, one, to stay younger, to find good community, to find good people, and to kind of like do my thing. And that's what being a bridge is about. And Revolution, as I know, I probably have worn this thing to death. So I want to move this conversation, because if you know Mark Berger, he is, he's a transcendent man, right? He is a revolutionary man. He is a Renaissance man. And I want to talk a little bit about the importance of mental health and self-care, because you practice that and preach that. And I want you to couch it in your journeys across the world. Why is it good for us to get out of our place and to experience new things in the world so that we can have better mental health and peace in our lives?
I would say the first thing is we have to get quiet. Like you were just saying, with all the political turmoil or the wars and everything going around the world, 24-hour news, your phone, and everything that comes on your phone, it's loud. It is really loud. It is hard to get away from it. I know you scroll, I scroll on so many different things. I mean, it is part of our life. And so it is really something to sit and do nothing. And I say, and I'm not saying like go take a nap. I'm saying to like to sit and breathe. Um, then from there, when you can do that, which when people come to me and they're like, I can't meditate, I can't sit still. there's always different types of meditation. Obviously, sitting and breathing is probably the best one to really keep your mind calm. But like, I wear these mala beads,
Yeah,
and
yeah. Thank you for
you
mine.
know, yeah, and I gift those a lot because when I tell people, to meditate and they're like, I can't, I'm like, well, here's a good option that helped me get into it. And it's just like everything else, it's like finding your way into it. So like, just like if a prayer bead is just like a rosary. And if you want to use a Mardi Gras bead, use a Mardi Gras bead, right? It doesn't matter. You want to use one of those little bracelets with beads on it. You want to just do it on your fingers. And what it is you're saying mantras or affirmations or prayers.
Yeah,
You keep
right.
going around and it takes your mind off of everything else, that's outside.
Mm, yeah,
And
yeah.
you know, in what your affirmation or your prayer is, it doesn't have to be a certain religion. One that I use a lot, um, I'm a big Matthew McConaughey fan and love Days
All right,
Confused.
all right, all right.
That's not it though, which I do love that. But it's just keep LIVIN.
Okay, all right. I want to hear this. I want to hear
You
this.
know,
Livin. Living.
just keep LIVIN. Just keep living.
Yeah. Just
You
keep
know,
living.
and it's just it's putting one foot in front of the other, little by little. It's incremental things. People think like you have to go and jump and start a business. It's like if you don't take those little tiny incremental
Mm,
steps to get there,
yeah.
you know, um, it's gonna be hard to just you gotta find those little tiny like um wins nonstop, and then you'll see the big picture. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. Is that for some, Mark, you know, the hardest part of the journey is just to start, to move into this space. And, again, I'm one to tell stories. But also learned to go validate those stories. And most of the times, it is an invalidation. Oh, this story was wrong. The people that I thought were a certain way aren't, or moving in this direction, or taking the first step, right? That I couldn't do the first step, or I couldn't. Oftentimes, it is the discomfort is just taking the first step. And then you keep moving, and you're like, wait. And you begin to look back at yourself and the journey, Mark, to say, okay, wow, 10 years ago, I was this person. And now I'm not. I'm something different. And the one thing that you say, if we keep the theme about bridge, is that I have been able to show folks what growth looks like because I kept living, I kept growing. I think that's the consciousness that I see in you, that you keep growing, that you keep pushing, that this version of Mark is very self-aware, empathetic, emotionally intelligent. Like that's the thing I see in moving forward, that keep living. Because here's my thing, and here's my hypothesis, and revolutionaries, you're probably going to get mad at me, because I don't think that there's a large population of folks that are living, right? Living, that are growing, because I think life is about growth. And this again is my hypothesis, that folks are cool with the status quo. This when somebody says to me, "Well, this is who I am," you're probably
uh,
not my people. This is who, because that means that you're not willing to actually be self-aware and actually look at, where can I grow? I'll stop there. See what you think about that.
yeah. So you had said being conscious. It's hard because 95% of what we think about is unconscious.
Mm,
Okay. And only 5% is conscious. So, how to tap into that? The unconscious is all basically um, what you're imagining. So, it's almost like fear based. Like, there's five types of fear: there's fear of failure, there's fear of rejection, fear of success,
wow.
fear of being a fraud. You always hear imposter syndrome, right? And
Yeah.
fear of abandonment. Um, and it's like, how do you take all those negative things that you're constantly thinking about that are popping into your head and putting your focus on the conscious stuff? It is not easy. Like I said, and it comes back to just all the stuff we're consumed with all the time. And so you know fear is a mechanism that helps us, like it helps us sort of like be safe, right?
Yeah. It's, I mean,
Um,
gets us out
and
of hopefully out of the way of predation.
right, so that's where those affirmations can come in, right? Like, you don't think you're enough? Say it 108 times. Say it a
I
thousand
am enough.
times.
I am
Say
enough.
it.
I
Say
am
it. Say it.
enough.
Say it. And guess what? It manifests. It comes
Yeah.
to you. Say that to yourself. If you say something to yourself that's bad, that's what you're gonna think about yourself all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And
and even if you don't completely think it of yourself at the time, if you don't put energy in towards those like positive things, you're still gonna be that negative Nelly. And like you're also saying, it's like, people think like this is who I am, whatever. People are just going through the motions. I agree with you. Like
yeah.
people, they might get mad at the way we're talking here, but people get into some certain lifestyle, they think that's it. I mean, think about I've listened to, you love Rich Roll too.
Yeah.
That podcast of the Centenarian, that guy started running
Yeah.
marathons in his 70s.
Yeah. 80s.
Right.
80s.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
ran up to in his 90s too. But I'm just
Right.
saying he started like in his late 60s, early
Yeah.
70s
That's right.
marathon.
That's right.
He
Yeah.
still does 9 pull-ups or something as 100-year-old. Like
It is the
when I'm talking,
belief.
I do senior yoga, and I love these women. I have like almost 30 at a time now. Started with like 5, and I do it's like a senior yoga fitness class. Never thought it would grow to be this way, and they have progressed so much. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, I don't care if you're between 65 and 80 something years old. Like, you still have a lot of life to live. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got grandkids, you got great grandkids. Like, what you're doing now, they go on these bus trips, they go to casinos and stuff like that. And they come back like, oh, my friends, they couldn't bring their luggage up the stairs. So we're like running up the stairs with luggage. I mean, these are seniors, these are our elders. And if we can learn to start living, like you said,
Yeah.
living like that when we're young, and then just pass it on to our youth, and then keep living as we get older, you know, we're not going to get old. We're not going to feel old.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
how many times have you said, I don't feel my age?
Oh, I don't feel my age. I don't look my look. I don't
Right.
act my age. You know what I'm saying? You immature fuck. But so, um, but yeah, like I got my water bottles in front of me. Look, I'm planning league tonight. I mean, it's a conscious decision. Like it's a conscious decision, and I'm gonna go back and reiterate that statement. If somebody says that I'm good with I'm good with this version of me. I can't change. This is who I am. Like I'm good with me. So let me take that back. I'm good with me. Like I love this version of me, Mark. Like I'm almost like I'm in love with it because I know who I've been. Right? I know who I've been from a health perspective, from a mental health perspective, from a person out in the world, pontificating my shit on everybody. I know who I've been. And so, at some point, you're going to look in the mirror. You're going to be like, I like this version of me. But you said this to me the last time we were together, and it stuck with me. How much better can I be? How much better can I feel? And that's a revolutionary question, Mark. Like when you're thinking about this, when you get to a space and your plateau is, well, how much better can I be? How much farther can I go? How much better can I feel about myself? That's a question. That's a question that I think that we have to ask. If you're asking yourself, right, you want to know the answer to what's your revolution. Well, maybe it's pulling back. Well, I feel how much better can I feel? And then the answer is like, well, the revolution is, you know, let me start doing this to see. Let me try this to see if I can feel even better. It's interesting, like as you said, and you get me excited around these conversations, but I'm like, who's the holistic doctor that I need to see now? Right? What are the practices that I need to bring in that have a holistic around my meditation and my prayer? What am I eating? How am I recovering? What are the supplements that I'm putting in my body so I can feel better, I can play longer, I can do all the things that I want to do. So it's so interesting, Mark, that, thinking about that living, how do you keep LIV in, right?
I
LIVIN, right? How do you keep living? Go ahead, Matthew McConaughey. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mark, there's a larger conversation. I want to spend some time on that, but I want you just to touch on this. You have been an entrepreneur. You have this entrepreneurial mindset. Talk to my revolutionaries who are thinking about, like, the struggles, the challenges, the strife of being an entrepreneur, and how you overcame those and actually created successful businesses. Like, what was it that Mark Berger did to create successful businesses around his passions?
So I want to go back to what you said just right before this, and this kind of goes into it. But it's about introspection. So basically, looking inward to figure out where you're going forward, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, you know, when you go to like a church, they talk about the different seasons that you've been in, right? The season
yeah,
that's coming and
yeah,
the season that you were just in, or whatever, right? We've been through a ton of seasons, okay?
yeah.
Um, and I'm not talking fall, winter, spring. I'm talking about like
Life
different,
season.
yeah, different things that we've had to overcome in our life. And so you can take introspection by looking inside and saying, like, how did I deal with that, right?
Hmm.
Um, what did I do when I was working for somebody that I would not do in my own business? What would I do in a business that I've had or that I tried to have that didn't go well? What am I going to do? So it's all coming back to yourself. I mean, that is yoga 101. It's finding connection to yourself, understanding where you've come from, and how you're going to use all those tools that you've used. Sometimes the worst tools in the world are going to be the best ones to teach you to go forward.
Wow.
We
Yeah,
we always talk about, oh, I had this great yoga teacher, right? Or I had this great professor in school. My friends have told me that before I even knew you really well. They're like, yeah, I love Dr. Charles. Um, so, but you're like, oh, you talk about that all the time. You know, in just a couple of things, like I got left at the altar pretty much, like almost. One of
I
the
didn't know
best
that.
learning lessons I ever had. I've had friends die in different
Yeah,
situations, right? Best learning lessons I've had. Are they sad? Yes. Are they things you probably had to like be a little bit tougher than just like your normal day-to-day stuff?
yeah, yeah,
Definitely. And guess what? I guarantee I learned more about life from some of those hardships, um, and what to do and what not to do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Embracing the struggle. Um, it is a skill that I've had to learn and still am learning. That is interesting, and I'm gonna go back to our question, but it's interesting when we talk about seasons, and I think of the summer. I'll call it my summer season. It was a season of bliss. I had a wonderful, wonderful summer, and it was unlike any season that I had experienced in recent years. Like bliss, love and passion and friendships and community. And but in my mind I said I have to prepare myself for the next season because I've experienced this love and passion and joy, friendship and community. And one day the season ended and it ended abruptly. Mark, like literally it ended abruptly. And I was like, okay, like we've been preparing ourselves for this. And even though there was preparation mentally for what the next season was going to offer me, I still wasn't prepared fully. But one of the things that you said is that if you can understand that there are seasons that are going to teach you, that you're going to grow, and you have to enjoy those seasons of bliss and joy and passion and love. But what are you taking from those seasons of hardship and challenge and strife? And what's the responsibility? I think that if I hadn't learned in other seasons what it looked like to take responsibility and why the season came, then it'd be easy to play victim. And I don't like that. I don't like it when people don't take 100% responsibility. Like understand the season is going to teach you something and understand that something that you did in a previous season may lead you to this season, right? And understanding that. And so as always, I'll leave it at this is that what you do today, Burger, you never know what seed you're planting. So be conscious of the seeds that you're planting. I mean, literally be conscious of the seeds that you're planting because they will come to fruition at certain points in time when you don't know. And I planted seeds back a long time ago when I was a different person. And now this season that I am in is because of those seeds that I planted. And so now what do? Well, you have to cultivate yourself to make sure that you're watering. You're still watering the seeds, but you're planting good things for the future. But I want to go back, like, tie that into being a successful entrepreneur. What was that like for you?
So basically, my first job out of college, I did marketing and public relations for Anheuser-Busch. They gave me a credit card. They said, throw parties, take people to eat, drink a whole bunch of beer. Look, I'm out of college. I thought it was the best job in the world. I had bud girls that worked for me. I mean, it was like, like
Awesome.
you think you have everything, right? Um, and so after I got out of that, because like I just looked at my life, I had a roommate that died. He got struck by lightning, right? Of all
Wow.
things, okay? Got struck by lightning practicing at the LSU recreational fields for baseball. Get struck by lightning. I look at my life and I'm just like, is this what I need to be doing? Like, you've seen before and after pictures of me of like a 10-year span. And it's like, I've always worked out and moved my body and stuff like that. But like, I was like, does my work represent who I am? And so the thing that I knew the best from there was getting into health and wellness because I knew I needed it for myself. And it's something I had always done in high school and in college, like training my friends, getting them motivated to go do things, playing sports. So like right away, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know I can do this. And so I started training people, and little by little, like people started seeing my transformation,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Holy shit! This you're not the same guy that was a bartender at Fred's, in Baton Rouge, right? Like, you were an athlete, but like not like you are now. You're not doing
Yeah.
marathons and Ironmans, and like, and it just by living like that, it helped change other people, and that's kind of really where I really got successful through fitness is people saw that I could change. And they're like, maybe I'm
Yeah.
not going to go do something as extreme or as long or whatever, but I can start somewhere. And my business, I owned a couple studios. That didn't go well. It's a longer story. Um, and I got out of that in 2017. I was pretty heartbroken because I put my whole life and all my money into it, right? And I had a teacher, and she was basically like, I think you need to go to India. Sent me to India. I came back from India, and things were clear. Things were clear. I didn't have like this grand plan, but things were clear on how I needed to live in business, which translates into my life,
Mm-hmm.
which translates into how I treat my body, what I put in my body, what I put in my ears,
Yeah.
what I'm seeing with my eyes. And don't get me wrong, you're still going to be exposed to all these different things. I mean, things are coming at you all the time, right? And it's how we deal with them. And so after I got out of my studios and I just started like my own basically consultation in all different types of health. I mean, I do so much stuff in health. Um, it became clear like I don't need a brick and mortar,
Mm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to be out there. I needed to go on Instagram and Facebook. I need to tell people my truth. Not everybody's gonna like it. There's so many times I put something out there and it wasn't, what other people, um, maybe their values or whatever. But I'm always open for the conversation.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
part of it. It's like, how can you understand different viewpoints, foster connections at the same time, and build community at the same time? And that's what I've just continued to do.
Yeah. Be a
And
bridge.
now I'm putting on retreats in India. I got one in Costa Rica coming up in June
Look,
and
you didn't tell me about
July.
the Costa Rica one. You always tell me about going to India. I want to go to Costa
Well,
Rica.
come on, Costa Rica. We're June and July. I mean, I hopefully we can do 2 retreats in a row. I mean, I'm hoping I have that many
Bro.
people. But I have a great partner, Sky, who's in that. Yoga. She does Reiki. We'll do meditation. We'll do some adventure stuff, whether it's hikes with waterfalls or zip lining. And like I said, it's another way that I'm bridging people to themselves in certain ways. I'm bridging people to the other um, participants that are going to be
Yeah.
there. I'm
Yeah.
bridging people to nature, And when you're in nature, guess what? You feel the presence of God. Whatever God that
There you
is for
go.
you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
feel divine energy next to a body of water, in a mountain, in a rainforest. That is where you can get quiet,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and so, you know, for me, I've also got this incredible drive, which you hear about it nowadays, like with how technology has made everything pretty easy. That people aren't having the drive like you used to have. You used to have to grind. If you weren't
Right.
grinding,
The grind. The
you
grind is
listen to old
just.
rap songs, they were actually grinding, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's so easy to not grind these days, or to think that everything needs to be given to you. um and for me, it's like I grind, but I grind softly.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
I don't
So do I.
hard sell myself. I don't hard sell myself. I don't say you need Mark Berger. I just say I put what I do, and people are like life coaching clients I've had, especially men. They come to me and they're like, Mark, I've been following you for a while. I've known you for a long time. And I kind of think you're weird, And I'm like, I smile like big. I'm like, yes, I
Yes.
got him, because they're
Keep
like,
Mark Berger weird.
well, because I appeal to different people. Um, but they're like, and I'm like, okay, weird. And they're like, well, you're always happy, and there might be some like yogic things that you're doing, or you're chanting in Sanskrit or another language, or playing a little the harmonium or whatever, um, or it's different than the average Western world. But guess what? If we go look at the way that we get closer to ourselves or to nature, we got to go back to Asia and Africa,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
The
We got to
communal
go
aspect
back to
of it.
these,
Yep.
or South America. We got to go back to these indigenous cultures and take the simplest things in life, because all we're worried about is the most complex shit that's going on in the world. How do we get something fancier? You know, um, like I said, all the material stuff. How do we make things easier with technology? If the hardest thing that people have to do is sit still, I was telling my cousin, I'm doing a little challenge with my little like first cousins. I told one of them, I put on the list that we're doing like meditation. I don't have time to meditate. I'm like, you have time. She's got two little kids. I get it. Like I love her to death. It's like one of my favorite people ever. 5 minutes to sit still.
Sit still.
If you don't, the reason why you're doing it is because you don't want to do it. Plain and simple.
You're not, again, you're not living. You're not moving forward. You're not growing. You're not, you know.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. Like we all have different situations. Like your life is busy for in certain ways that mine's not, and my cousin is different. But like you just gotta like dip your toe into the water, and then hopefully you just fucking dive in, right? Excuse my French, but I mean,
Yeah.
really,
It's like
dip
that.
in,
It's like that cool,
in
cold
5 minutes.
pool.
5 minutes. I'm not asking for 30 minutes. 5 minutes to sit still. Like at the end of your, the workout part, I put like try to move your body at least an hour a day. Okay, let's say 55 minutes you're moving, and then 5 minutes
5 minutes
you
you're
sit,
sitting still. Yeah.
or you wake up 5 minutes early to go sit down on the ground and breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that unconscious, that's where that fear, that's where that like false identity just keeps coming into your head over and over and over.
I
And
can't.
until you can get rid of it, you know, and that's by sitting, the only way is by sitting still. And it is the hardest thing for most people in the Western world.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Mark. I appreciate the answer. Um, I want to turn this conversation in our remaining time together because all of this and all of this encompasses, two people, two humans who think about consciousness and awareness and being a bridge and showing up in the world and doing the work. But it also feels like it also feels like that this stage, and Mark and I both are two single cisgender heterosexual men, that it also seems a little bit more difficult to bring a partner into this. And I know this was, we talked about like this being the lion's share of the conversation, but I was like, I got Mark Berger on. I want to pull so much out of the great Mark Berger. Um, why do you think it is somewhat difficult to find partnership at this stage of our lives, that allows us to keep living and growing and allows for them to keep living and growing? What have you seen? And Revolutionaries, we're about to have a conversation about dating, and one thing I want to put a caveat is that we're not going to bash anyone, and this is our experiences about dating. And you've heard two conscious folks who are trying to do the work, who also find it somewhat ardent or hard to, not ardent, but arduous to find partnership. So, Mark, talk about that for a
So I would say, and I'm not speaking for you, but I'm going to speak for you and me.
second. Thanks, Mark.
um, you know, you and I are pretty self-absorbed. Now, I'm not going to say this is a bad thing.
It's like, damn.
No, because you know, like you said, we're putting in the work. If
Yeah,
you're putting in the work, that means you have to work on yourself, right? Whether it's financially, relationally, you have to have a good relationship with yourself
yeah,
to be able to do it with somebody else, right?
yeah. It's true.
You have to have a good relationship with, what you're doing for a living. Not all the time, it's not going to be perfect. But if you're part of something where you're grinding and stuff, you know, that is part of the work that you're doing, your passion, your pickleball, your health, your wellness. I mean, there's so many things. And I say self-absorbed, not in me, not people think it's a bad thing, right? To be
Mhm.
say selfish, right? But like you really have to put time into yourself. Like
Yeah,
number one is you. No matter what, you have a partner or not, Charles has to live with Charles the rest of his life.
that is true. That is true. I may not
Same
want to live
with,
with them every day, but that is true.
same with myself. So, you know, I think that's like as we get older, we get a little bit, this is the way we do things, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes it's a little hard. And then, if we're finding partners, let's say within a decade of us, either way, like I said, it's an open conversation. People they have their own ways of doing things.
Yeah, yeah, especially when they're in my decade, Mark. You know what I'm saying? Especially
So,
when
and I've dated older and I've dated younger.
right.
Um, so I think there's my biggest things on dating right now. It's like one, you have the dating apps. So besides that, like
Mm.
inside an actual relationship, when you start dating somebody, it's learning how you can still grow separately and grow together.
Yeah, yeah, that is true.
Like you can have different passions. You can support the person in their different passions, and then hopefully that like you can have stuff to share.
Mm.
Like, there's a yogic thing, and it says 1 plus 1 equals 1, right? You have
Okay.
one, you have one. You're like two different cells, right? And how do you take those two different entities to merge into one?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's a very very difficult thing. Um, so I mean,
Dating,
it's just
Mark, dating is okay. I'm gonna personalize this. Dating can be hard. Um, dating can be hard for me. And I think it's a lot that comes from self work, self reflection, as well as um, I think that I have some ingrained things when I hear certain things. I want to get your opinion on this. When I hear certain things from women that become cues like, I don't know. Like, I've been hearing this term, like, I want to be pursued. And that term for me, and and again, here's the thing. Now I'm like, okay, I keep hearing this word, so let me ask my female friends. Let me do the work around this because it feels like a little like I want to be pursued, and I want you to run after me. And if I decide to choose you, then cool. If not, then and I'm like, my time is important to me. My resources are important to me. And so that's what it feels like. If I'm pursuing you, I'm giving my time and my resources, and then you get to choose. And I feel like, again, this is me, mutual pursuit is sexy. Like we both have given indications
Agreed.
that there's an attraction or a liking and that we're going to pursue each other. That's just me, but I keep hearing that, and I haven't heard on a lot of instances like, okay, I want you to pursue me, but what does it look like to pursue you? What does it look like to nurture you? And I heard something. There's a woman who's going around making around. Her name is Sadia. Um, she's Saudi Arabian, I think. She's Middle Eastern, and she talks about that women want to be pursued, but men want to be nurtured. And I thought this. I was like, yes, men also want to be nurtured. They want to feel like, you know, I'm pursuing you, but I also, if you want me to go out and take on the world, I want a safe space to come home to. And so, what does that also look like? Because I can't just pursue you and not feel like there's something. I understand it feels transactional, but I don't want to make it transactional. But I want to feel like there's a mutualness to this as we move.
Well, I think it comes to communication because if they put it out there like I need you to basically chase after me, that's not really what you want to hear. And so if they come to you a little bit more clear and like, hey, I really like when you plan something, that's totally random and like that just like that gets me going, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but not like, hey, if you're not like paying for this and bringing me to this fancy place and whatever, and I don't feel whatever, like being pursued is, I mean, for me, compared to maybe a different person, for me, like, you have those five love languages. For
Yeah,
me, it's
yeah,
quality time,
yeah,
like
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
quality time can come in so many different ways. And so if I'm wanting to like hang out with you, if you're a person that needs gifts, that's probably not the person for me. And and it's trial and error. It's like being an entrepreneur, right?
It is, it is, it is,
we're
and
we're we're entrepreneurs in dating. Same thing. It's trial and error. It's learning from what you did before. And also it's just like, hey, give it another chance. Like maybe she said something. How many times have you talked too quick? I mean, all the time, right? Like
right, right,
so, maybe it's like asking like, maybe be a little bit more clear in what you're asking, right?
right.
um and then like finding like a good way to have conversation back and forth, because that is the problem with all relationships, is that especially now that you're using a phone, if somebody says it over a text
Yeah,
or
you're trying to interpret motive, morale,
right,
intensity, all the
you
things.
don't see body language,
Yeah,
it's shorthand. I mean, there's so many different miscommunications that you're not getting.
yeah, yeah,
And that's gonna throw a wrench, because like you could tell somebody you love them and they might think that you hate them, right? Like, I mean, that's how like 180 it can, like, the script gets flipped, right? And so it's really like my ex, who I love to death, Vanessa. Um, she has something called check-ins, and a lot of
okay,
times I
yeah.
hear that word, oh, it's time for a
Let's
check-in.
check in.
I'm like, oh shit, right? Like, like what did I do, right? And it wasn't that. It's like, hey, let's just sit and talk about something before something becomes bigger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And I think you need to be maybe a little bit more than just like a few dates or something to like kind of get to that level. But like if the woman is conscious too, you can start it pretty quickly.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
You know?
I definitely agree. Marco, it makes me think, and I remember as I was planning for this conversation, I was like, when was the last time I really pursued a woman? And it felt like, and it felt, and it felt like, like, okay. I thought about, and it probably wasn't the last time. So revolutionaries, please, or people that I've dated, or please don't come for me. So it was the most prominent time that I remembered pursuing someone. It was my ex fiance. I remember pursuing her. I remember us having a wonderful time at our godson's birthday party and talking. And I remember giving her my number, and I remember saying, "Hey, I would love to talk to you again." I also started thinking about some of the things I did to pursue her. She lived long distance. I traveled. I drove the 5 hours for our first date. I remember burning my favorite CD for her, which at the time was Illumination by Linkin Park, that album, right? And she was a huge Linkin Park fan. Um, and I remember burning that, and I remember, yeah. I pursued her, but she also let me know. I remember the cue was her calling one day, and she's like, "I just want to let you know that I have a huge crush on you." And I was like, "Oh wow, this beautiful ass woman has a crush on me," And I was just like, "Oh shit, yes!" Like I hit it. I messed that up completely, but you know, it was a reminder of what pursuit and mutual pursuit looked like. I remember also this nurturing, me driving the 5 hours, when we were going back and forth. And when I got there, there was a bottle of water, or there was food prepared. She would have something there ready for me. She's like, "Babe, I know you drove 5 hours here for me to spend some time with me. Um, I'm gonna take care of you." So there was this level of nurturance. And so I wonder if we're thinking about, you know, uh, in this term of high value, people who are strivers, people who are self-aware, and who are still dating or still trying to find their person. How do we communicate that I'll pursue you, right? If there's a mutual pursuit back, if there's a nurturant side of that you see my value. But I also I also think that, and I'm going to say this out loud, I think that some dudes have actually made it easy, that they're just going to go ahead and spend money and spend resources willy nilly, and people this expectation that this is what pursuit looks like, and if you don't do that, then I'm not messing with you. But that's a hypothesis that I have.
Well, it was great. Another thing that I love with the love language is acts of service, right?
Yeah,
Like just little things, like just a bottle of water that made it for you, right?
yeah,
It wasn't
yeah, yeah,
big. And then I would say the hard part with the communication and pursuing somebody, there's no wrong or right way, because how many times you're like, okay, I'm gonna pursue somebody, and then you hold back. You're like, wait, maybe they think I'm coming on too strong,
hmm
you know, or there's a 2-day rule, I need to wait or whatever. And
yeah,
so, like,
yeah,
for me, like, I've gotten past that. Like, if I want to call somebody, I call somebody.
yeah,
They
yeah,
don't like that. Like, if they're like, oh, he called twice in 2 days. I'm like, my mom, everybody, all my friends say, like, if I'm getting a call, it's either you or my mom, Mark. Because, like, I like communication.
yeah,
Like, I want
yeah, yeah.
to phone
I'll text you to
with
death though.
somebody, not just texting, right? Back and
Yeah,
forth.
yeah,
And
that's my
so,
problem. That's my issue.
if
I'll text
I'm
you to death.
pursuing you, I'm going to call so I can hear your voice, so I can have that's part of the bridge in me. Like, I can have that
Yeah,
you. Text is not going to give me that same connection. Me
yeah,
saying
yeah,
love you over the phone or how was your day over the phone versus texting it, huge difference, right?
yeah,
And
yeah. No, yeah, no. I had a woman tell me the other night. She was like, "I love you, Charles," and I was like, "You're being an ass," you know.
and
You
so
know.
it's not it's not, you just don't know. That's the hard part, is you don't know what the other person's thinking. You're trying to
Yeah.
gauge by their communication back to you. Everybody's like, I don't want somebody that plays games or all this
No.
stuff, right? Like, it just happens a lot of times because you just don't know. A lot of it is out of like fear. Can you come back to fear?
Fear, rejection, fear, like one of those
Right.
fears: fear of rejection, fear of
Fear.
abandonment.
And like, should I call? You know, you're looking at somebody on a dating app, right? Like, should I ask them out or am I scared to get rejected?
Yeah, fear of rejection, and I play on dating apps sometimes, and a lot of times I don't, but it is it is like what ghosting is a thing, and like what does that
Right.
mean? Like what does that actually mean? Like, oh. Like, oftentimes it doesn't mean anything. They're just not interested. And you have to think about, like, this is just me. Like, I can't, I'm gonna keep growing. It's not that I'm gonna keep growing, but you can't internalize like every rejection. And it also is the work. It's also the work in like, well, why am I feeling this way if I'm rejected? Because in all actuality, if you look at life, we reject all every day. Every day we're rejecting something. I mean, it is a part of the human experience. And so what makes us special enough that if somebody rejects us, that, oh my God, I gotta feel bad about it. But that's some of the deeper work. Mark, let me ask you this really quick. Because I had this conversation, I had this conversation with my boys. We had Friendsgiving, and they were like, "You have this list. Like, did you have this list of things?" And and I hate litigating this. I hate litigating this with people, right? And I hate litigating. I'm saying this out loud, revolutionaries. I hate litigating this with people who have been married for a long time. And I realized that was the counter argument. They were like, "You've got this list." I was like, "You've been married to the same person since you were 25 years old." And I wonder, I wonder, would you still be married to that person, right? If you had to get married to that person now, and so, but it's interesting. Do you think, right? How do you think about negotiables and non-negotiables in dating?
So I mean, look, I have a lot. I would say I have a lot of non-negotiables. My first one is you have to be healthy, mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
Like I don't care
Yeah,
what
it's
spiritual
true.
practice. I don't care what your spiritual practices are, as long as you know why you have those spiritual practices. I don't care what they are. If they make you a
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
it does not matter to me. You know, our physical bodies. Yes, I am vain.
Yeah, me too.
Like
Me
don't get
too.
me wrong. I want to look good, but the older I get, keeping myself in a physical, like in physically great shape, helps my mind. It
Yeah.
protects my mind. It protects my internal organs. It protects my soul and my heart. So yes, I need somebody that's gonna want to do that. They don't have to have the same thing with spirituality. They don't. They can go do Pilates. I don't have to go do Pilates with them. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
If they
Moving.
ask
You keep
me
it
to do it
moving.
with them, I would probably go do it with them
Yeah.
just because they, it's movement and I love movement, but that's not my jam. That's not what I'm gonna go do every single time. So yes, being healthy in so many different ways, like I said, mind, body, and spirit, I think is number one. um you have to smile, you have to have fun, right? You have to enjoy life, you have to livin,
Yeah.
living.
Yeah. Living.
Definitely, like we've been talking about the whole time, growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
you you've got to be able to like keep pushing forward little by little. It doesn't have to be these huge jumps. It's little incremental things, because the little incremental things lead to big things.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing little incremental things, like we said before, you're going through the motions, right? You come home, hi honey, you cook dinner, you watch TV, you go to bed, right? Like I always have a podcast in my ear or a book on Audible, and at night I have a book in front of me. um and I'm putting tabs in the book, I'm making notes on like a note. I mean, like I'm constantly looking for like maybe another thing to go and take, like a course in something. I mean, I'm 42 years old.
Yeah.
School's been over. The nightmare I have all the time is that, like, I'm failing college, I can't get out. and and I and I just want to learn like nonstop. Like I want to know the history of like what has gone on in the world to make the world what it is, right?
Yeah.
If my
Yeah.
part, I would love to know, what makes you tick, good and bad. And that's where, like I
Yeah.
said, 1 plus 1, you grow aside so you can grow together. If you can't
Yeah.
grow separate, you can't grow together.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
Um,
Mark, talk to me because I think one of my, both of those are part of my non-negotiables. Talk to me about people who are working through their trauma. And that's important to me because, at this stage, and I'm 10 years older than you, people are going to come with something. And it is important for me, if we're talking about that they've done some of the work and that that they're continually working because I know for me, like, how do I show up better? And I'm not perfect. I'm not going to sit on this podcast, Mark, and say I show up every time perfectly. Like there was a instance this weekend where I didn't show up purposely, but I did the introspection around why didn't I show up well? Why did I choose the behavior that I chose and not another behavior that actually probably would have had a better outcome for both of the people involved? So
So
talk about that.
trauma is a sticky situation because everybody's traumas are different. I always say number one, like if you are having like issues with anything that you need help, like find somebody to help you. Whether it is a mental therapist, a life coach, a friend, a parent, whatever it is. But the main thing for it is there's a Sanskrit word called sadhana. And
Mhm,
sadhana stands for spiritual routine.
mhm.
And so to be able to put your spiritual routine into play every single day is going to help you with everything that's going on in your life.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not saying that you're not going to fall off. You know, it's just like you get in a health program, then Thanksgiving comes, you might have a day or two, you're eating a lot, you're not going out as much. You live somewhere, it gets colder and darker. You're going to fall off a little bit, but like get back on it, change it, tweak it if you need, because it is that constant, like I said, it's the incremental things that you do every single day. The first thing I do when I wake up, I smile.
yeah.
First thing, I smile. Like if you smile, you're not hitting the snooze button. I promise you.
I don't have an alarm clock anyway.
Second thing I do is I drink water. You're lucky. Second thing is I drink water. Um, Third thing I do is I go and I sit. Not every morning, but I go sit in front of my altar and I sit and breathe, or I do my mantras.
Yeah, yeah,
First three things in the morning. Um, I'm not saying it's gonna cure everything, but like the way you start your day is probably the way you're gonna end your day.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I go to bed early. If
So deep.
you go to
Right.
bed too late and you're tired in the morning, you're not gonna feel good. You're not gonna have the energy to do things. So I, like I said, it's about the little things, and it also goes back to what we said earlier. It's like taking some of that trauma, as hard as it was, and using it as that as your teacher.
Yeah. I love that, and it's so interesting that bringing someone in your life who can understand your trauma, who can be a sounding board and can be a place of safety. Um, but it is also our responsibility if we're going to show up in relationships that we also do the work externally and internally to make sure that we can show up, that we're not bringing the lion's share of our trauma into a relationship because it can hurt it and you can mess folks up. I've done that. My trauma, my childhood trauma, has played out and it has hurt people. And I don't ever want to be that person. I don't want to extend my trauma on folks if they're not ready to receive me and I haven't done the work. And that's important. We can sit here and talk all about like that person's not right for me, this person's not right for me. I have begun this dialogue with myself over the last couple of years is that what's my responsibility? If I can look back and say, okay, well, why did all of these things did not work out? Well, who's the variable in all of this? Me.
Well, and the best thing you just did is you acknowledged it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people, they keep it bundled up inside, or they take it out on other people. Like they don't, you acknowledged it, and you're like, okay, what's my next step? What am I gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
And
who am I who am I gonna connect with? Who am I gonna bridge with? Right?
yeah.
When
Yeah.
I'm having
No, and
about
that's the
women,
thing. Yeah.
life, about financial, whatever it is.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm in overcoming a lot of things, and I'll say this out loud. One of the things that, I've spent a copious amount of time in therapy is this ingraining about what beauty is and why I need beauty in my life. Why that was ingrained and how that has impacted how I comport myself when I'm dating. Like what does beauty look like? And why am I pursuing this type of beauty? And I had to really work through that. And it has been really, really interesting to see that play out and to really internalize it, and then to try my best to then work through that, to really push through. Can I look at different aspects of beauty? Which is, when things have been ingrained for so long, it's like turning a train around that's been going 100 miles an hour for most of your life, and you have to stop the train, right? You got to slow it down first, stop the train, and then take this entire train and move it in another direction or turn it around. And so, it's been an interesting journey. Look, I'm looking at this. I'm like, wow, we could go on for another hour. But I know you're excited. I know you're excited because I'm about to ask you. Like, you've been waiting for this. Mark Berger's been waiting. He's like, when are you gonna ask me? When are you gonna ask me? I want to know. I want to tell the world. I want to tell you, revolutionaries. This has been a wonderful conversation. But I want to ask my good friend, all right, serial entrepreneur, mental health and wellness expert and guru. Like when I talk about the mayor of New Orleans, when you say Mark Berger, everybody knows him, right? When you think about mental health, wellness, and peace, you think about Mark Berger in New Orleans. So I want to ask you, my dear friend and my brother, what's your revolution?
Charles, my revolution is to be a bridge to each other, to nature, to divine energy, and most importantly, yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Being a bridge. Revolutionaries, I want you to think about that in your day, in your week, in your life. How are you being a bridge? How are you extending yourself to someone who you don't even know, right? Sometimes being a bridge is just saying hello, smiling. You never know who you're going to impact by your presence, right? Sometimes just sitting next to someone, right, will be the lifesaver, will be the bridge that they need. You never know. Be the human that you need to be for someone else. Think about that. My brother, I love you, man. I appreciate you. I look forward
Love you.
to yeah, look, the next time that we get a chance to play some pickleball. Hopefully my game is even better. The first time we played out in not Lafreniere, but Park
Honestly,
and yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Mark kicked my ass, and I was like, "Yo, this is not gonna happen again." So we played again a couple of weeks ago when I was in New Orleans, and the pickleball coach that he is now, he gave me some tips. He's like, "Your game has got much better." So I appreciate that, and I look forward to time. I look forward to that. But yeah, man, thank you for the time. Thank you for who you are in the world. Thank you for being revolutionary. All right, Mark Berger. All right, the revolutionary that New Orleans needs. So thank you so much. And to you, revolutionaries, you know that we are here for you and that I love you and that I am with you through this journey of being the most revolutionary version of yourself. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Peace.